Mouse Trouble News fans, I was just, sitting around. I was, trying to think up ideas for videos and whatnot, and I was thinking about the fictional religions from works of fiction, TV shows, books, movies, and whatnot. And I was thinking about my two favorite ones. So, yeah, I just want to talk about my two favorite fictional religions. Uh, my favorite one is the one from the Diablo series, the Sin War trilogy novels that were written from about the game Diablo and Diablo 2 and whatnot from Blizzard Games. And then there's the whole religious conception that comes from Dragon Ball Z. So I'm going to talk about the Dragon Ball Z one first. I always thought it was really interesting how both of them, but particularly Dragon Ball Z, there's no conception of God. There's no creator. There's no someone that created everything. And there's no one supreme being that has power over everything. Even though the religious, spiritual dimensions to the actual... I don't know how it is in the manga. I only know how it is in Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball GT. Although I guess I suppose as well as Dragon Ball Z Kai, being that it's just Dragon Ball Z redone. The whole spiritual aspect of it is very strange. There's very little, if next to nothing, in terms of actual spiritual existence. I mean, spirit existence on our plane of existence. Basically, when you die, you go ahead, you go along to this place, to King Yama, just a guy who basically looks like a demon, and he makes the decision of whether you go to heaven or you go to hell. To them, there is no limbo, so it's not a place that you can go. And they have this. The judgment system isn't known about whether someone is good or bad. He appears exactly as a bureaucrat, a guy sitting behind a desk, and when you come before King Yama, who's not actually king, that's just his name for some reason, he pulls out a piece of paper that has like the list of your deeds in your life, and then he'll stamp it, heaven or hell, and then off you go to wherever it is that you've been sent. And you go to heaven or you go to hell, but then there's this very strange third thing that can happen to you if you were a tremendous hero in your life, like Goku was. When you die, you're allowed to keep your body. Most people appear as some kind of white, flamish substance that's supposed to resemble a soul. But if you were a particularly renowned hero who did really great things in your life, in terms of physical combat, if you were just like a really great person that gave a lot and did a lot, then you just go to heaven. But you have to be like a warrior, like an actual physical warrior. So I think maybe in this case, we're seeing a Bushido element to the religion, the warrior code and whatnot. For those of you who don't know, it's like the Japanese version of Valhalla and the Viking ideology of the great warriors go to the Great Hall and whatnot. But with this Japanese element to it, where a really great warrior, physical fighting warrior who is great in virtues. You can't just be a great fighter and then have been a dick all your life. You had to have been a great fighter who fought for noble causes, and then when you die, you get to keep your body. And when you get to keep your body, you're allowed to pretty much go around and do whatever you want. You can go to the Grand Kai's palace and train, and there's guys who've been training there for 4,000 years, blah blah blah, and they fight each other, and it's always a contest to see who's the best among the greatest heroes who've ever lived and then have passed on. But I think it's interesting to note that there is the mortal realm where we are, and then above that is hell. Hell, where you go to be punished, is actually above the mortal realm where we are. And then above that is Snake Way, basically where you go to be judged by King Yama. And then there's this odd thing where you can travel along Snake Way and you can get to King Kai's world. And King Kai is not the protector of Earth, but the protector of a quadrant of the universe. The universe is divided into 4 quadrants, and there's one Kai for each quadrant, and King Kai being the one of North Kai. I think he's the North Kai, and he watches the north end of the universe where Earth is. Now, like I said, there's the 4 Kais, and they each have their own planet. And their job, they're not creator, they just watch over. Although they actually are very limited in power themselves, it's their job to watch over that quadrant of the universe. Above them is the Grand Kai, the guy who watches over all the Kais. And in the show, he takes on a very, I can't even think of the word, I would say like a goofy 50s biker image. Like a 50s biker, but if they were really goofy and a cartoon character. And he has domain over all the Kais, and all the Kais have to listen to him. And then out of nowhere comes the Supreme Kai, this one Kai that's over all of them. And he has his own planet, which is over all of them. So, but the Supreme Kai is not God. He has domain over all the Kais. And he's like the supreme watcher over the universe. But that's all he does, is watch over the universe. He doesn't really have any power over it. He doesn't really have much in the way of authority. There's no great creator watching over everything. And I think that's a very interesting religious aspect, that heaven and hell exist alongside each other, but they have no interaction. There is no constant war. There's no conception of a constant war between good and evil. They just merely exist side by side, hardly acknowledging each other. But I think it's very interesting because that abstracts so completely from just about every other religion. There's probably some minor religion somewhere that I don't know of that also does this. But the main idea is that heaven and hell are always in a struggle, and most of that struggle taking place right here in our realm between, it goes into the whole thing about good nature versus bad nature, and good people and bad people, and so on. But there is no conception of that in their religious belief that exists within Dragon Ball Z, and I think it's really odd. Because even the fictional religions that are going into Star Trek and to other novels or to even Dune, there's still always this concept of good versus evil. But it doesn't seem to exist in Dragon Ball Z. You're either a good person or you're a bad person. And there doesn't seem to be really much in the way of a struggle there. Of course, good people on Earth fight bad people on Earth, but there's no overall context of a good or evil. I mean, Goku goes around and he says, I'm fighting you because you're pure evil. But Goku, in a sense, is not fighting evil itself. He is fighting an evil person. And this can be seen in the fact that when he's fighting these people, he keeps giving them chances to change. At the end of the first season, he essentially ordered Krillin not to kill Vegeta once he'd been defeated. Krillin had Yajirobe's sword, and he was going to kill him while Vegeta was trying to crawl away to his spaceship. And Goku had only intended to fight a bad person, not evil itself. And he let Vegeta get away to show him what it means to be human, and that compassion is not weak. And that if Vegeta could understand how Goku could give that kind of mercy to someone who tried to kill him, tried to kill his family, tried to kill the entire planet, that maybe Vegeta would learn something about humanity. Of course, eventually, Vegeta does learn this and becomes one of the good guys. Officially, he becomes one of the good guys in the 9th season. But the point is, the rest of those seasons, you see that slow transformation from being one of the bad guys to being one of the good guys. And this theme continues. Goku giving the main villain, whenever that villain changes, the chance to change. When he goes off to fight Frieza on planet Namek, he keeps giving him chances. Like Frieza was defeated, and he was not going to be able to do anything. And Goku gives him some of his energy, just enough for Frieza to be able to leave. And he says, go home, basically reevaluate your life, look at the harm you've caused people, and I suggest you take a hard look at yourself and change your ways before something worse happens to you. And of course, Frieza completely ignores Goku's warning. He completely ignores his advice and tries to go after Goku anyway, so eventually Goku has to finish him off. Of course, we find out later that Goku didn't get the job done. He was trying to kill him, but he didn't get the job done. And then Frieza comes back, and Trunks shows up and actually kills him. And then later, when the androids show up, even then Goku's giving them chances to change. Even Android 16 and 17. Or is it 17 and 18? Yeah, 17 and 18. He gives them the chance to change their ways and to become better people, despite the fact that they're literally machines. They're literally programmed to be a certain way. Well, by near the end of the Cell Saga, we see that one of the androids, Android 16, actually does change. He realizes that what he is doing is wrong and goes against his programming. So even though those after him, Cell doesn't change, Majin Buu doesn't change, we still see that there's an entire theme of Goku giving them the chance to change, not merely accepting them as just basically pure evil, evil that he has to fight. And I think in that, it's making this statement in the show that there is no essence of evil. There was only evil people, and that there are good people, and that Goku is a champion of good insofar as he fights people who do evil, and once they have changed or they're dead, he stops. He doesn't actually go out and seek to fight evil, even though he says what he does is he protects the weak and believes in fighting evil, but he never really actually fights evil. He only fights people trying to convince them to change. And I think that's a very different theme than we see in a lot of other shows. So I think its conception of good and evil are very different than many of the other shows and, mangas or novels or whatever that are around. So I think it's very interesting to see that there really is no ultimate good and there really is no ultimate evil, and that is expressed in the show with its conceptions of heaven and hell. There is no devil, and there is no God, and to much of my extent there are no angels either. And that there's not a single angel that's seen throughout the entire show, even the few scenes that are actually taken in heaven. But when you go down to hell, well, there's demons all over the place. And even King Yama himself appears to be a demon. So I think it's very interesting how the show doesn't have a conception of ultimate evil and ultimate good, and that is reflected by the fact that there is no God and there is no devil in the show. Now, another one I want to talk about is, like I said, the Diablo series, the trilogy, The Sin War. Now, I don't know how far I should go into explaining Diablo. The book kind of a bit abstracts from the actual game, although the game is the story basis. The video game is the basis of the story, and okay, maybe that changes later on, because the Sin War trilogy actually takes place before the game Diablo does. Now, this is the way it exists. There's the high heavens and the burning hells, and these two have existed through all time, and they've always fought with each other. Again, there's no conception of a god or a devil. In hell, there are the three prime evils, Diablo, Mephisto, and Belial, and they are like the end-all, be-all of evil, even though there's no actual guy on top. Although Diablo is considered to be the greatest of the brothers, he's not really the devil. Then on the other side, you have the high heavens, and there are not many characters as such. although this one character in the book, Inarius, certainly symbolizes, doesn't really symbolize God, but he's considered to be the most powerful person that's aware of what's going on. Although it doesn't really get into so much what happens in the high heavens. Now, the way the story goes is that there was only heaven and there was only hell, and they fought this eternal battle between the two of them, and it's always a stalemate. Nobody ever really wins, and it's this draw all the time, like as usual as in pretty much all the conceptions. Except something unique happens this time. What happens is there are demons who grow completely tired of the war and see how pointless it is. Nobody ever wins, nobody ever loses, it's a waste of time. And then some of the angels see that too. So they're like a few dissenters within both sides, and eventually they start reaching out to each other, and they say, this is like a real effing waste of our time. It's battling for no reason because nobody's ever really going to win. Now, interestingly, they come up with the idea of creating a sanctuary, a place where they're neither in heaven or hell, and they can just live out their lives however it is they choose to do without being a part of the whole war between heaven and hell. This place called sanctuary that both angels and demons make is where we live. It's Earth, and they make the Earth. Now, they make what is, they make it how it works, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, the angels and the demons existing in the same place at the same time, not fighting each other anymore because they're tired of it. Eventually, one thing leads to another, and they start having children. So now you start having these children that are half demon and half angel. And with each successive generation, they have less and less power. Apparently, the more you mix them, the less power that they have. So you're having these subclasses of angel and demon, and then eventually, as the generations go on and human beings spread throughout the world, the knowledge that they stem from angels and demons is forgotten about, and eventually they forget their powers because they don't know that they have them and don't know how to use them. And for the most part, the farther away they get from the original union of one demon, one angel, the weaker that person becomes. So it becomes completely forgotten about, and nobody even knows how to use these powers. So what ends up happening is that the children of these angels and demons end up populating the entire world. Now, with that eternal conflict of good and evil still going all the time, there is a struggle to keep the high heavens and the burning hells from knowing that sanctuary exists, sanctuary being Earth. Because both sides, the separatist demons and the separatist angels, both know that if the burning hells find out about it, they're going to come in, turn them into an army to attack the high heavens. So basically they're going to destroy it. If the high heavens find out that sanctuary exists, they're going to come in and demand them to be worshippers, and that'll ruin everything as well. It was put so well, if evil takes over, the place will be destroyed and it will be ruined. If ultimate good, the high heavens, find out about it and take over, then the place will eventually stagnate and will cease to have any meaning. In other words, their whole big idea is that there has to be this balance. Now, for the most part, generally in the world, I don't believe in balance. I think the whole conception of balance is something that people just made up to make things easier. Basically, it's the essence of third-way capitalism. Well, yeah, capitalism's really, really bad, but, if we, went with, altruism like communism, then, I wouldn't be able to get all my really great consumer goods, and I wouldn't be able to be a materialist asshole, so I'm pretty much just going to have to stick to being some kind of third way, so that way I'm not completely eaten alive by an ideology that I don't want to give up, because it still gives me a few trinkets that I like. And I think that in that is essentially the essence of balance. someone unwilling to commit to either side for whatever reason. And then, to me, it's akin to fence sitting, which is annoying. Well, the whole point is that there are some demons and some angels who know about sanctuary, are trying to keep things in balance, and there's some angels and some demons that are trying to take over. Now, what happens is there's this Messianic character, Odyssean Ul Diomed. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. The name's pretty complicated. And what happens is, one day he realizes he has power because a demon gives it to him. And the whole point that the demon wanted to do was manipulate him, tell him he should go out and preach and teach all the other people how to do it. And then what would happen is that as they all realized their own power, they realized they didn't need the dominant religions that were there. So they would leave them, follow Odyssean, and that demon would manipulate Odyssean, who would manipulate his followers into being what she wanted, an army. Now the thing was, this demon who's manipulating this guy is going up against other demons, the three prime evils, Diablo, Belial, and Mephisto. They exist as a religion called the Triune. It is basically this idea of these three gods, but they're basically the three evil badasses. And then you go and there's the cathedral, the citadel. I forget exactly the word that they used, and that was to represent Inarius, the supreme guy for the high heavens that exists, that knows about sanctuary. So then you have this poor Messiah who's kind of caught in the middle. He doesn't like the three prime evils that are passing themselves off as a church. He hates them. He hates them with a passion, but he hates the high heavens as well. And that makes the whole situation very complicated because they're both trying to manipulate him into doing what they want, and he doesn't really want to be listening to all of them. He doesn't want to listen to either one or want either one of them to live. He wants them both gone, but they're both trying to make him take a side. So while I haven't actually finished the last book yet, so I don't know how it all turns out, but it's definitely very interesting because you see this guy, he's trying to do good for everybody by freeing them from these controlling religions, but he's getting his ass stomped by both the high heavens and the high hells, while all this time trying to make sure the high heavens and the high hells, the high heavens and the burning hells, don't find out that sanctuary exists, because they're all concerned that if the high heavens find out about it, they'll just destroy it. And well, they don't want to be destroyed. Or if the burning hells really find out about it, then they're going to do all the nasty stuff that they do. So it's very interesting to see this one guy being torn and trying to be manipulated by both sides into serving either good or evil. It's a very, very interesting read if you try to look at it from a theological standpoint. If you just look at it as a fantasy fan, then it's an enjoyable book. But it's more enjoyable on some more subtle levels. It's interesting to deal with, to see Odyssean dealing with trying to be pulled by both sides. I would recommend the books, the Diablo, the Sin Ward trilogy, and obviously I would recommend Dragon Ball Z because it's really, really good. So those are my two favorite fictional religions. And what's your favorite fictional religion? Upload a video response talking about your favorite fictional religion from what show, or movie, or book, or manga that you like.